Hello, my name is BC Oladipopa and welcome to my podcast. My website can be found at www.inspiredwords.org. Today I'll be sharing on the high cost of trying to please people. There is an account in the Bible about David and Saul. Saul pursued David for a long time and tried to kill him, but David was preserved by the Lord. Therefore, Saul was unable to do David harm. At a point in Saul's life, the Philistines fought Israel, and Saul was among those involved in the battle. Let's have a read briefly about what happened. 1 Samuel 31 verses 1 to 6, and I read, Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell down in Mount Gibeon. And the Philistines followed hard upon Saul and upon his sons. And the Philistines slew Jonathan and all the sons of Saul. And the battle went sore against Saul, and the Archives hit him, and he was sore wounded of the Archives. Then said Saul unto his armor-bearer, Draw thy sword, and thrust me through, lest this uncircumcised come and thrust me through, and abuse me. But his armor-bearer would not, for he was sore afraid. Therefore Saul took a sword, and fell upon it. And when his armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, he fell likewise upon his sword, and died with him. So Saul died, and his 3 sons, and his armor-bearer, and all his men that same day altogether. From this account we can see how Saul died. For the sake of emphasis, I'll read 1 Samuel 31, the latter part of verse 4 again. Therefore Saul took a sword and fell upon it. In other words, Saul killed himself. In 2 Samuel 1, we have an account of a young man who went to give David an account of Saul's death. 2 Samuel 1 verses 6 to 10, and I read, Now this is the young man giving David an account of what happened. And the young man that told him said, As I happened by chance upon Mount Gibeon, behold, Saul leaned upon his spear, and lo, the chariots and horsemen followed hard after him. And when I looked behind him, he saw me and called unto me, and I answered him, I said, Here I am. And he said unto me, Who art thou? And I answered him, I am an Amalek. And he said again unto me, Stand, I pray thee, upon me, and slay me, for anguish is come upon me, because my life is yet whole in me. So I stood upon him, and slew him, because I was sure that he would not live after he was fallen. And I took the crown that was upon his head, and the bracelet was on his arm, and I brought them unto you, my Lord. Is that what happened? No. And why did this young man make up a story that he killed Saul? He obviously knew that Saul was David's enemy. He must have assumed that David would have been happy that he killed Saul. Now let's look at David's response. 2 Samuel 1 verse 11. Then David took hold on his clothes and rent them, and likewise all the men that were with him. Verse 13. And David said unto the young man that told him, Where are you coming from? And he said, Who are you? And he said, I'm a son of a stranger. And David said unto him, Were you not afraid to stretch forth your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? And David called one of the young men and said, Go near him and fall upon him. And he smote him, and he died. And David said unto him, Thy blood be upon thy head, for thy mouth hath testified against thee, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed. This young man lost his life. Why? Because he was trying to please David. He made up an account that never happened and paid dearly for it. I remember reading a true account of a lady going through a difficult time. The Lord revealed to the author of the book that the reason this lady was going through a difficult time was because she was in the wrong church. She knew where she was supposed to be, but chose to please her parents. She was in the wrong place, and not where her necessary network and provision was for that season of her life. Galatians chapter 1 verse 10 reads, For do I now persuade men or God, or do I seek to please men? For if I am yet please men, I will not be the servant of Christ. 1 Thessalonians 2 verse 4, But as we were allowed of God to be put in trust with the gospel, even as so we speak, not as pleasing men, but God which tries our hearts. Paul made it clear that he was not in the business of pleasing men. Why? Because he's a servant of Christ, and God tries the heart. Ultimately, we are all going to give an account to God ourselves. We cannot afford to be men pleasers. So my short exhortation today is this. Has God called you to do something? Has the Lord given you a mandate that is not popular? We pay the price when we please man. We must remember that Proverbs 29 verse 25 says, "The fear of man brings a snare. It will trap us and hinder us in many ways. It's not worth it. Just step out and obey the Lord. If someone threatens to withdraw their support, let them go in peace. The Lord will provide." In closing, I will leave us with this. 2 Corinthians 5:10 reads, "We must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ." As we are servants of the Lord, let's obey Him and Him alone at all times. Where we have done otherwise, let's repent, ask for mercy, and return to do what is right in His eyes. Thanks for listening.